Now I can't go bonjour. I bit my lip. When I was a kid, I bit my lip. My mom would always say, go swim in the ocean. I should probably point out I didn't grow up in Kansas. I grew up in Florida. The ocean was right there. And that was the medicine, you know, for everything. If you stubbed your toe, go swim in the ocean. Run into the garage while you're taking the cord a little too tight, go swim in the ocean. Gigi Craddock told me she liked Ben Tongue better than me one day, and my mom says, go swim in the ocean. The reason Gigi Craddock liked Ben Tongue better than me was because I'm convinced Ben had blonde hair, and I didn't. And in spite of the fact that I was outside all the time, my hair never got blonde. It just didn't. Well, one day, my parents went out of town for about 4 days, and that meant I could do anything I wanted. I was about 16, and 3 things happened that changed my life. The first was I was watching TV. I was watching the Munsters. They had like a Munsters marathon. And a commercial came on for Sun-In hair lightener. Now that's not really relevant yet, because when you grow up in Florida, the last thing you do is put chemicals in your hair. I mean, come on, you're a Floridian. That's for the Canadians. They come down and put stuff in their hair, stuff on their body. You just like slap on the shorts and go out the door. But later that night, I decided to go for a walk down the beach, and the second thing happened that was destined to change my life, and that's when I met Joanne. Joanne was Canadian. Joanne was beautiful. She had that Farrah Fawcett hair. I mean, it was exactly like that, you know, feathered back. And every time she said a boot or boots, I just got cheery inside. So I decided to be as charming as I could, and I convinced Joanne to let me show her around. So she gave me her phone number, and I told her I'd call her the next day. And that's when I knew that I needed to be blonde. Not going to repeat the whole Gigi Craddock thing. So I walk up the beach to the grocery store. I'm not the grocery store, the drugstore. Not the little drugstore that Ben Tongue worked at, but the Big Eckert's, where the Canadians would buy all the suntan lotion and stuff. Because I didn't want anybody to recognize me. And I bought Sun-In hair lightener. And I brought it back home. And even if I had taken time to read the package label, I would not have tried it out on a small patch of hair first. I slathered that stuff on every hair on my body, including some that nobody had ever seen. And I was hoping Joanne would get a chance to look at. It's interesting when you're allergic to something. You don't just get a rash where it touches your skin. You get a rash all over your body. And it's red, and it's itchy, and it's hot. Well, the other thing is that your throat closes up. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it does things to your mind. I should have realized, because it didn't even occur to me to go swim in the ocean. I sat there on the couch going, what's going to make me feel better? And the thing that occurred to me, popcorn. Popcorn was going to make me feel a closed up throat, a rash all over my body, and I wanted popcorn. Well, back in those days, we didn't have microwave ovens or popcorn makers. You make popcorn by putting a pot on the stove, you pour the oil, and you turn the flame up to high, and when it gets hot, you put popcorn in. Done a million times. I know it takes about 7 seconds for that oil to get hot enough to put popcorn in. But, like I said, the strange thing about this Sun-In hair lightener is that when you're allergic to it, it does strange things to your mind. I decided to take a nap. So I got in the living room and crashed on the couch. I had no idea how long I was asleep. All I know is that when I woke up, I looked over and there was this red glow coming from the kitchen. And I just thought, well, popcorn. In the kitchen, and there's the pot on the stove with flames shooting out of the top of it, scorching the ceiling. And like I said, you know, when you're allergic to Sun-In hair lightener, I know how to handle an oil fire. I was a Boy Scout until then Tom decided that he wanted to try and get me to do an atomic setup. I quit, but before then we learned how to put out oil fires, and one of the things you do is you smother the fire. You take the lid, you put it on the pot, and it goes out. Well, it occurred to me that the way to handle this raging inferno was to grab the pot and find someplace else to put it. I actually read the other day, I've gotten into cooking, and I read the other day that the perfect temperature to sear meat is 450 degrees. And thanks to the oil that was splattering out of the flaming inferno, I can tell you that that handle was 450 degrees exactly. The minute I touched it, it seared to it. And instead of letting go, because that would have been the smart thing to do, I still tried to find a place to put it. So I'm all over the kitchen with this flaming thing, and not only that, flames are shooting out, but the oil is still splattering. And instead of landing on the handle, now it's landing on my hand, and my arm, and all over the kitchen. And I still can't think of where to put that thing. And so I had this epiphany, this vision, this thing. This is, well, I know where to put this. I'll put it in the sink. Because there's a window over the sink, and there are curtains on the window. Like I said, you're allergic to sun and hair lightener. Anyway, so I stick it in the sink, but it doesn't go out. Instead, it catches the curtains on fire. Now, then I had another idea. I'll blow it out. So, here we have a raging inferno in a sink under curtains, lighting them on fire. And even though my throat is closed up, I managed to take a huge breath, blow into the pot, flame blows back out of the pot. Oh. The other thing that I probably would have picked up on if I had read the label is that sun-in hair lightener is really flammable.
Oh no.
God, no.
Yeah. Anyway, there is a happy part to the story, and that is I learned a really important lesson. The important lesson was sometimes two wrongs can make a right. And here's how I get to that. I haven't solved the problem. I still have a fire in my sink threatening to turn the whole house into a cinder. And I decided simultaneously that the two things that were going to help are A, throw newspaper on it, and B, hose it down. It was in the sink. So I turn on the faucet. Somehow between the newspaper and the faucet, two stupid things to do to an oil fire, it worked. Fire. So I'm in the kitchen, totally bewildered, still with a rash, and I needed to take a nap. I still needed popcorn. Well, I went back, crashed on the couch, slept the whole night. When I woke up the next morning, my head was clear, wandered into the kitchen, the stove is still on. There's a ring of grease splatter 3 feet around it. The pot is out, but the faucet's still on. The curtains are halfway burned. The glass in the window is cracked because of the heat. There's a scorch mark all over the ceiling, like somebody was trying to draw a bunny in soot. My hair was gone. So were my eyebrows. Instead, I had blisters. Needless to say, I didn't call Joanne. The phone rang though, and my mom called me. She wanted to check and see how I was doing. I just totally broke down. I was sobbing. I'm like, I can't see Joanne. I have no hair, and a blister over my arms, and my head, and my eyebrows are gone, and I'm not blonde like Ben Tommy. I just burnt your curtains, and I ruined your pot. And when I finally stopped, my mom was really quiet, and she goes, go swim in the ocean.
Give me a head with hair, long beautiful hair, shining, gleaming, steaming, flaxen, waxen. Give me down to their hair, shoulder length or longer. Here, baby, there, mama, everywhere, daddy, daddy, hair. Blow it, show it, Lord, I can blow it, my hair.
Don't wait for the sun to
get your hair light, let a little sun in, do your hair right. Let gentle for softness, or super for flair, or new natural lemon, put sun in your hair. Get natural looking highlights as soon as tonight. Put sun in your hair, do your hair right.